Everybody. My name is Inka Cotton. I'm the founder and executive director of San Antonio Charter Moms. And these are Charter Moms chats. We've been going live to share information that will help families choose schools that are the right fit for their children. And today we have a new guest post on the blog, and it's from Fusion Academy San Antonio. And the blog post, it's at sachartermoms.com. And it's about things you can do in the summer with your teens. But this is a great excuse for us to talk more about Fusion Academy, and we have an expert here to talk to us about it. So Lynique Charles is the head of school at Fusion Academy San Antonio, and she she's super smart. She studied molecular cellular biology, physiology. So and her hobby, she likes trying new restaurants, which I also like, and also enjoys dance. So I think this is gonna be a great, like, wide-ranging conversation, but I'm really excited to learn more about Fusion Academy because it seems like it's breaking the mold in a lot of ways. So, Lynique, thank you for joining us on Charter Moms Chats.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, so I always like to get right to the point of, like, if people maybe have never heard of Fusion Academy, like, in a nutshell, like, what is the mission and vision of Fusion Academy?
Sure. So with Fusion, everything here is personalized. We get to operate through a really unique platform and reach our students through a couple ways. So everything here is personalized and customized based on the student need. We are a micro school, so we cap at about 100 students throughout the school year, and that really gives us the opportunity to learn who our students are and focus on a well-rounded approach. So we approach the academics as well as who they are as a person and help them develop.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you. That's a great introduction. So I want to ask you more about, like, what sets Fusion Academy apart from other schools. So like, I've heard of the three core modalities, but I was wondering if you could explain more about what those are.
Yeah, I would love to. So we, again, get this unique opportunity to reach the students in three ways. For each of our courses, students will experience three modalities. That first modality is kind of what sets Fusion apart from any other school out there. We are one-to-one. Our students get to experience their classes in a one-to-one setting, one student, one teacher. This means that the teachers get to customize and personalize how they reach every single student. Before a student gets started, we assess them in both math and reading comprehension to figure out if that student is ahead or if there are some skill gaps that we need to go in and kind of recover. Once we have that, the students are in this kind of micro space, this intimate space with the instructor where they get to ask all of their questions, right? The curriculum is designed based on how they learn best. Are you that visual learner? Are you more auditory? Do you need to see it, touch it, hold it, feel it for it to come to life? We've gotten away from putting our students in that one size fits all. And once we do that, Inga, they really start to thrive. So that first modality is that one-to-one setting. Second up, we have our digital asynchronous feature because we are in the world of, or in the times of the digital scholar. So we want students to feel empowered and motivated. And through this, we're able to assign their lessons and practice mastery, right? Through that asynchronous piece. And with it being digital, and it happens in our homework cafe where they are surrounded by instructors who can answer those questions in live time. So the students are not alone, although they're working through this, right? They always have that support in the background. And then finally, we have group project-based workshops. It's imperative to us for our students to know, once they leave us, right? Once they turn 18 and they get out into the world, it's not all one-to-one. We want them to hear from other perspectives, be able to collaborate, build friendships, camaraderie. And so we use STEM and humanities-based workshops where the students get together. We have middle school groups and high school groups. And through that, they work through their lessons, they attend field trips together. And so although they have that one-to-one space, they also do have that group space where they get to work together.
Well, that's really helpful because it helps. I'm able to kind of picture in my mind, like, what students are doing in these different settings, whether it's one-on-one with the teacher or in a group with their peers and working on a project. So I was wondering if you could explain more, like, what kinds of students that you see at Fusion Academy.
Sure. So we see a plethora of students, typically four. The first type of student we'll see is, in the traditional classroom when you are surrounded by, 15, 20 of your peers, in order for teachers to kind of maximize learning, they kind of teach to the middle. So we have the first group of students who are accelerators, right? They are ready to get through some rigorous curriculum. They are ready to maybe expedite their high school education and want to finish sooner, and they may get bored in the classroom. For those students with the one-to-one setting, you can accelerate, pick up the pace, right? And kind of customize it that way. But then we also have the students who may have fallen behind. Maybe there are those skill gaps that we do need to recover. Maybe we need to move at that slower pace. And a one-to-one setting, the instructors do have that opportunity to go back and kind of build in those layers as you approach and address new curriculum and content. Now, we also get those students who may already be working. Maybe they are professional athletes, actors. They just don't have the capacity to do classes Monday through Friday from 8 to 3 p.m. With Fusion, the same way we're able to customize our classes, we are able to customize the schedules. So maybe you need that later start, or you know what, Inga, maybe you have to be away when you're one-to-one. As long as you have that wireless internet connection, you open your laptop, your teacher is right there on the other end. So whether you're here in San Antonio or somewhere else within the States, you can continue your coursework and not have to pause. And then finally, the fourth type of student we see is maybe that student that they just did not fit in that large traditional setting. Even sometimes myself, Inga, I step onto campuses, they feel large, right? And maybe that student doesn't have a voice. Maybe they've had to deal with bullying, anxiety, depression. They just need a smaller space where they have a voice, right? And can be heard. And maybe they need the intimacy of that one-to-one classroom so they can rebuild the confidence that they may have lost along the way. So essentially, those are the four types of students that we see.
Well, that's really interesting to hear. Like, I try to really listen to parents and like, what their problems that they're trying to solve as they're doing a school search, because that's a lot of what we do is like getting information out to parents as they're searching for school. So I'm really happy that we have, Fusion Academy as part of the options that we can present to them. And this is my chance to, I'm going to plug our discussion group on Facebook. So if you're not listeners, if you're not already a member, search for San Antonio Charter Moms discussion group on Facebook, and we're over 9,000 members now. It's a great place to ask questions, and a lot of we do hear questions like what Lynique just mentioned. Feeling lost or overwhelmed, or experiencing bullying or isolation in a large school setting, and needing something smaller. And it's hard for charter schools to provide that because they're still under the sort of state funding formula. So private schools offer an additional level of flexibility that even charter schools can't provide. And then be able to personalize the learning to where the student is at, whether it's like needing a different schedule or needing, recovering those skill gaps, or if they really want to work ahead. We're big believers in like doing what fits for that student. And it sounds like Fusion offers a lot of flexibility.
Yeah.
So I want to talk more about there were some really great ideas in the blog post that the team at Fusion created. And so I wanted to touch on some of those, because I feel like this is another way to kind of demonstrate like what's unique about Fusion. So in the blog post, like one of the things it touches on is like things that you all are hearing from teens about, what the past 2 years have been like. And that gives us a sense of like, like us for our blog, or like at Fusion, like at the school, like, how can you support the families and the students with the challenges they're facing after 2 years that have been really disrupted?
Yeah, no, it's so funny that you mentioned that. I especially feel for, some of the students, they had to go from elementary to middle school and boom, like you're in this new setting, or from middle school to high school and boom, you're in this new setting, right? Where those 2 years were virtual, and you're having to adapt to transitioning from maybe one class, one teacher, to 6 classes, to 6 teachers, 6 different expectations. So when I meet with parents, of course, I'm hearing a lot of, their kiddos having lack of confidence, high levels of stress, high levels of anxiety. Parents are also, saying, hey, I was home too. And so while, your student was in one room trying to get through classes, you may have been in the other room trying to work. And, now you have just a different set of things or issues issues that we have to go back and look. Then we also see students who, again, they have that lack of confidence, but Inga, they also have that lack of friends, right? And so now they're trying to figure out how to get caught up academically, but also how to make friends, how to get readjusted into social life, how to even have a social life. And so I think that being able to do so in a micro school, it just really affords a lot of grace. We do see students who probably would have never spoken to each other in a traditional setting with 300, 500, 1,000 kids. In a space where there's just 100, we all know each other's names. You can't help but to. And now you see students who, athletes may now be best friends with the anime kids, but again, in that larger setting, they just would have never had that opportunity. So again, I think that in this micro space, it just affords a lot of grace for students, and then parents can sort of start to see immediate results, right? So when I first meet a family and they come into my office and the parent describes the student, chin is down, lack of confidence, and they're just wanting to rescue hope. You come into this setting where there are not that many other kids. We built the type of school year around the kids that are here. So we look to them for the types of clubs and field trips that they want to experience here on campus. As the head of school, I don't have to hear from 1,000 students, right? And 2,000 parents. I just hear from 100, and so it's a lot easier for me to curate a school year that exactly looks like what our kiddos want. So then by week 2, you have the same student who had maybe that lack of confidence and their chin down, and they're bursting into my door. They're telling me all about their weekend. They now have a pal, and that piece is really exciting to see. And I think that it just happens a lot faster when it's on a smaller scale.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's really encouraging to hear because I've been hearing the same things about. I mean, we experienced it at my house of like me trying to work, my kids trying to do Zoom school, and everybody kind of getting on each other's nerves, and then you kind of like have to like stop and take a deep breath and then ask yourself like, okay, what's the big picture here? Like, what are we trying to work towards? And like, and
Yes.
what you're talking about, like having human connection and like having like clubs and things that you're interested in, like that's what gets us this renewal and a chance to get kind of a fresh start of like as the world kind of reopens.
Yeah.
So and then you mentioned about like one of the big effects of students having to go through pandemic learning was that they lost confidence and they sort of lost that skill of connecting with their friends, and they're able to do that in a smaller environment. But some students may also have gotten behind, like they might have a skill gap to fill in. And so I guess one thing that Fusion Academy does is offer summer courses. So I was wondering if you could talk more about what the summer course offerings are at Fusion.
Yes, that's a great question. So, the beauty is that we are a year round school and all of our programming is happening in all of the semesters. So, no matter what class you need to make up and recover, we can assist with that. The beauty of also coming to Fusion is that you are going to be able to do so in that one-to-one setting. So, think about biology, it's already tough. You could put 12 kids in the class or even one student in the class, but how great would it be if you got to ask all of the questions that you needed to? So we can definitely recover the honors level courses. We do offer AP as well. And then let's say that you need to get ahead, or maybe there's a student who's in a sport and you need that after school time. A student can come to us and essentially take both of your math semesters over the summer. That way you have a free period to go ahead and play basketball or whatever that may look like for the student. So we can remediate, we can accelerate, and let's say that maybe we just need to, you passed all your classes, but we still have some gaps that we need to go back in and take a look at. We offer tutoring and mentoring services for every single subject. So if you want to make sure that we're going into the fall stronger, right, even if that is at a confidence level or a skill level, you have that option as well.
Yeah, well, you're speaking my language because I'm such a believer in it has to be the right fit for each kid, and I think sometimes as parents, like we get worried about like, oh, we're not following the checklist, like we're not following the script, and it's important to like let go of that, like keep in mind the big picture. It's not like the high school diploma is not necessarily the goal. The goal is like an independent adult who has confidence and like knows what their likes and dislikes are, and they have like confidence in themselves that like this is what I'm good at. I'm going to go out in the world and bring this to the world. And so changing up their course schedule, like, yeah, like you said, get some courses out of the way in the summer that opens doors for the future. If they have a passion for a certain thing, like, a math or science subject, but they need to fill in those skill gaps in math, like, take care of that. And then that unlocks their future of the things that they're the most passionate about.
Yes.
So while we're talking about summer, then another thing that students can focus on, you mentioned, like, with the sort of tutoring services, like that, executive functioning skills is something that, um, students can improve on, and then that can unlock a lot of other possibilities for them. So can you talk about, like, what are executive function skills, and then what kind of support students can get for that at Fusion?
Yeah, sure. Well, essentially, executive functioning skills are just the skills we use every day to learn, work, and manage daily life. And we kind of build on those in a couple ways. Now, before our students get started with any of our courses or any of our packages, we assess them with mind print. And so that allows us to look at how they learn best cognitively. And with that, teachers kind of learn how the students learn and can help assist them with that. There's also a service we offer to the community at no cost. I think once you get to determine, hey, this is how I learn best, you really start to thrive, whether you go back into that large traditional classroom or even when you get into college. There's something about, being in that lecture hall with 100 people and you're the professor giving a 60-minute long lecture, and then you have to go home and unpack it. So if we start to develop those skill sets now, then they can really thrive when they leave our doors. Another way that we tackle that here on our campus is we have a homework cafe. And I'm sure you're like, what on earth is that? So our students actually complete their homework here on campus, and we do that for a couple reasons. One, we want family time to remain family time. And if you have to argue over the dishes versus math, then at least it can be the dishes because we've covered it. But what we also focus heavily on are those executive functioning skills. So when students come to us, in the beginning, maybe they don't have all those organizational skills. Maybe they don't even know where to start. And so we kind of grasp their hands a little tighter at that time. So that might look like, hey, Inga, you just finished math class, have a seat. Keep in mind, in the homework cafe, there is always an instructor there, present, right? Available to answer those questions. So I'll say, hey, what class did you just have? All right, well, let's go ahead and take a look at what you might have to do for that class. And again, you're kind of walking them through this, and with enough practice, our hope is that they're able to do it themselves. Okay, well, let's take a look into Canvas. That's our learning management system. I can see you have 3 assignments. Why don't we go ahead and chunk those up? So we'll focus on 30 minutes of English, then we'll go ahead and take a break around the campus and then come back to it, wrap that up, and let's start on science. And so with practice, the students start to develop these skill sets that they will do on their own. And so what started off, as, I don't know, kind of micromanaging, turned into this self-sufficient student who has now had the practice and can do so. And you don't just apply it here, you can apply it with everything else. So at home, I know that I need to tackle this set of chores. I'm going to do this for 30 minutes and then take that 10-minute break to watch my anime show and then come back and go ahead and work through the dishes in the kitchen. So we kind of use a couple different approaches to tackle those executive functioning skills.
Yeah. Wow, that's such an important concept. I ever like, a few years ago when I learned the term executive function, I was like, "That explains so much," And then it's like once you realize it's important, then it's like, "Well, what do you do about it?" And what you're describing makes a lot of sense because it's sort of modeling or kind of working alongside the student,
Yes.
but then stepping back and giving them space to exercise it, and then, and, like, if they mess up, or I mean, if they forget their skills, you can remind them of it, but the goal is to get them to a place where they're independent and they can apply that in the workplace or in, their life goals, and, have lots of choices and a more fulfilling life because they're able to set their sights on something important to them and get there.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, okay, so, another thing, okay, this goes back to, what you said, what you've been hearing from families, what you've been hearing from students, that, the isolation of the pandemic and losing confidence, that, like, students may need help with, social emotional skills, like learning to understand their own feelings and express them in constructive ways, and understanding what their students around them are feeling. So, what are some ways that Fusion Academy, supports, social emotional learning?
It's so important that students learn how to manage and understand their emotions. I mean, even adults. And so, because of that, we've made it an integral part of our model. Our model actually consists of a triangle in which the first layer is love, that second layer is motivate, and then the third layer is teach. So, that piece is the most important to us. Now, in that one-to-one classroom, the students and teachers kind of built their rapport rapidly, and you can also tell, who your student is and maybe how their day is going, right? Because you've spent the time with them, but also in the one-to-one setting, you can do frequent check-ins. Now, there does become a time, or maybe some students, I'm sure we've all experienced this, where you're having a lesson, and because of maybe what's going on the outside, we are not going to be able to get through this. And sometimes there becomes a time where you say, you know what, this English class is not going to fix what's going on in here. This math class, right? This algebra class is not going to settle it. And so because this teachers have, that relationship with the teachers and the students have that relationship, then they can, really mold and kind of shift how that interaction is going to go. And so, in using the love, motivate, teach, let's say we're having a hard time. Well, you know that I care about you. And so let's start there. And we can always pick up the lesson, once you start to feel better. So that one-to-one space is really where that will happen.
Yeah, that's so important. What's probably happening too is that over time the students are probably internalizing that voice, and then if they catch themselves, they're able to sort of have self-talk and be like, okay, like I know that trigonometry is scary, but it's like like give yourself a little hug, right? And then and then draw those triangles. Yeah.
Or I mean, with again it being a micro setting, we have a chat here with all of the teachers and administrators, and there's a director of first impressions right there at the door. And sometimes we can tell as soon as a student enters, you know what, this student is having a day. And so you can kind of refocus and shift how you will approach that lesson. Maybe there was some really complex or challenging lesson that you were going to deliver, but instead you turn it into an activity, right? You have the opportunity to do that with that one-to-one space. Or you know what? Let's go ahead and take a walk. Or remember, let's work for 30 minutes, and then for 10 minutes, let's go ahead and talk about some other things. So they have that flexibility, and it's not just this, we have to get to the end of the lesson by here. No, let's customize. As adults, we learn, let's say that you had a rough day, you go into the classroom or you go into work, you're able to kind of shield it, wear this mask, and essentially pretend that everything is okay. Our students haven't just mastered that yet. So while they're in your class, if something is going on, that algebra is not sticking. This Spanish lesson, it's not going to be retained. So why not, do it at different time? Let's focus on being here now and being present, and then revisit that when the student is more open and receptive to it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the compassionate way to do it. That's the way to do it right. Yeah. Um, well, I mean, I keep touching on this theme of like what did students, especially middle school, high schoolers, experience during the pandemic, and um, how Confusion Academy help remedy that. And I think like part of what they experienced, like I know that like students who like had their senior year of high school or had like their first year or two of college, like they experienced a tremendous amount of disruption. Like they didn't get to go through like the rituals that they
Right.
expected, right? And like maybe they did a year of virtual college instead of in-person college. And I think for some kids it's gotten harder to picture themselves at a college, or what their adult life would be like, because they lost so much the flexibility that teens normally, right? You try to grant them more independence so they can practice that and
Right.
hopefully use it responsibly. And and like teens didn't get to experience that, and they didn't get to like think ahead about their future. So so I'm sure like parents are trying to like have these conversations with their kids, like think about college, and think about what you want to do and what the steps are to get there. But so how can Fusion Academy help with those conversations, like get kids thinking about college and about the future?
I love that. So we also have a part of our program, success coaching, where the students are partnered with a success coach one-to-one. Now we have the academics cover, right, in that one-to-one realm with the digital async plus the group project-based workshops. But if we're focusing on the whole student, then we want to look at life, outside of that. And so they're able to set other goals. So what are some personal goals that you have? What are your hopes and dreams? Maybe you want to play an instrument. Maybe, you don't even know what your passion is. You'd be surprised, or maybe not, at how common that is right now, where students are like, I don't even know what I like. Let's start to explore that. If we kind of find what that looks like for each individual student, then they really start to thrive.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's um, I think because I am hearing so much from families, like, it actually doesn't shock me. It's sad, but it doesn't shock me that, like, because I feel like because kids couldn't experiment with things, like that's how they find their passion. Like, so maybe you have a closet full of unused sports equipment, right? But it's because they had to try all these other sports before they found their thing, right? It's like maybe there's a violin you need to take back because they really love the cello. So like there's just so much. I mean, we've tried. My kids have tried lots of different activities and camps, and then like when you find that thing that they're really stoked about, that they want to talk about all the time, like it's so gratifying. And then it gives you a sense of like, okay, even after they leave the nest, like, as long as they bring that passion to what they're doing, like the world is going to see that and they're going to succeed at it.
Right.
But it takes a little coaching. It's like there's times where as a parent, I don't have all the answers and I need to tap into my network of, other adults and smart people and, who have all these ideas. And, teachers, I'm so lucky that because I work at an education nonprofit that I get to interact with teachers because they're some of the like most full of ideas people that you'll ever come across.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to as we're kind of getting towards the end like of our conversation, but I feel like I've learned so much. But I was wondering, and I know you talked about like the modalities and like the homework cafe and the one-on-one sessions, but I was wondering if you could like maybe share a story or two about like the experiences you've seen students have at Fusion Academy and how that could give people a sense of the school culture at Fusion Academy.
Yeah. Stories. There are so many. When I think of this semester alone, which has only been about 12 weeks or so, just when we got our brand new group of students, right? Because we are pretty new to San Antonio and they had come from traditional schools and they're like, we don't know what this is. We got them all together and we said, hey, what field trips and what clubs would you guys like? And they're like, well, you're not going to listen to us. You're just asking us. Does it really matter? And I'm like, no, seriously, let us know. And so they gave a bunch of ideas. They said they wanted to go to escape rooms and they really wanted to go to court. They wanted to like visit court and figure out what court looks like. They wanted an end of the year pool party. Just some really cool ideas. And again, because we only have to listen to, a handful of students, we get to go to the drawing board and say, okay, which ones can we make happen? And we delivered. So they've already been to that escape room. They got to tour the Honorable Judge Huff's courtroom 2 days ago. They wanted a murder mystery dinner, right? We've been able to kind of make all of that happen. And what's nice is that every student here has had something come to life for them, right? Because it was originally their idea. So we do listen. They are heard. Now, what's also funny is they said, you know what, Lynique, we really want to fundraise. And I'm like, oh, these kids, oh, we get so lucky. And I'm like, what are we fundraising for? They're like, so we can go to the mall and shop. Okay, well, we'll work on that. But the other ones, we can totally make happen. So I think that when you talk about culture and community, they see themselves here. We decided not to use stock images. Fusion's been around for a while. We have 66 campuses. You can just have some photos delivered to your campus. One day they came to school and they saw them on the walls. They saw pictures from their classrooms, pictures from their activities, and sometimes they're like too cool for school, but you saw their eyes. Oh, you did enjoy that. Like, when did you guys pick this up? So I think that speaks volumes, and that every Fusion campus that you visit, it's going to look like, whoever that community is, and they all look different because it's based on the individuals there. So they've made this campus their own, and I'm really excited for them.
I love that because like they're having these ideas and then those ideas are coming true and they're getting out in the world and experiencing things and
Yeah.
Each Fusion Academy school, its own culture is going to emerge from that small group of students and what they're curious about.
Yep, 100%. So
That's awesome. Okay, so I always like to close out with putting some links on the screen and actually here I'm gonna make my head normal size again. Okay, um, so I'm gonna put some links on the screen and have you give people more ideas about how they can connect with Fusion Academy. So first I'll put the website up. But yeah, what are some good ways for families? Like I hope that they're excited and now curious about this, and whether they want to enroll their kids or they just want to dip their toe in, like for the summer programs. What should they do next?
Yeah, so definitely visit the link on the screen of fusionacademy.com. And from there, you'll be able to select the San Antonio campus. Once you enter your information, one of our admissions representatives will reach out as soon as possible and we can schedule a virtual meeting. But if you're here, come down to the campus. Even if you're just curious to see what a micro school looks like, I highly encourage you to come attend. We offer meetings Monday through Friday. I'm sure that we can find time to fit your schedule. So all are welcome.
Okay. So yeah, so fusionacademy.com and they can, focus in on the San Antonio because there's, many Fusion Academies like across the country. And then there's also on the website, there's a phone number, but I'll go ahead and put it up on screen, 210-510-0203. And then there's a grand opening coming up soon, right?
Yes, that's correct. So next Wednesday, from 4 to 6 p.m., we are having our grand opening and ribbon cutting ceremony. You'll be able to meet all of our administrative team, all of our instructors, as well as get to speak to some current families and students. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We have events planned, giveaways. Come down and celebrate with us.
That sounds really fun. And so the physical campus is located in the Stone Oak area, right? Like near Highway 281 and 1604.
That's correct.
Awesome. Okay. Well, Lynique, this has been great. I've learned a ton about Fusion Academy. Like I'd seen the announcements about it opening up, but I didn't really appreciate how different it is, and and just what it means for like a micro school to be able to really personalize things and develop its own culture based on the students that are making up that community.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel really lucky that I get to serve the students here and call us, come down to the campus. We'd love to have you guys.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the conversation. I encourage everybody click through and you'll find more links and ideas in the blog post.
All right. Thank you, Inga.
All right. Thank you. Take care, Lynique.
Bye bye.